guy's just standing there and comes running at him with a knife, and he's like screaming and is like, "Oh my God," and just starts firing, just spam fires. And he's just like, "Oh Jesus, oh God, why?" And the whole game, that whole demo is like that.
The totally immersive environment where you can hear yourself breathing, right? You can hear your footsteps, you can hear the splashes of the water. That fucks people up.
That's the way the demo, because it's pitch black outside of where the flashlight is, and you can hear this guy running up. That's why he turns, because you can hear him splashing and coming up, and he's like, "Wait, where's that coming from? Oh God, blam 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 blam," and like it's, oh geez, and the demo ends where a guy, like a zombie, comes out of a room and just stands there for a second, and if you don't shoot him right away, all of a sudden the lights start going, and he does the Thriller dance. And then he does the Thriller dance. And
what game is this?
What did they call it? I don't even remember what the hell it's called. I just saw the Jack Frags does playthrough of the demo on YouTube.
Okay,
but it's in Unreal Engine 5, so it is just the most real graphics I've ever seen. It is, and the sound design is creepy as hell, and oh good Lord.
Sounds PTSD inducing.
Just watching someone else play the demo, I was like, and I'm like, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You will never get me to play that game. No, absolutely not.
Put the nods on. Just sitting there in the corner.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, oh dude. Well, and apparently at the beginning of the demo, you don't even have a flashlight. It's like you can't see anything. And then you finally find the flashlight, and as soon as you turn around, when you put the flashlight on the gun, there's like a hat stand sitting there with like a clown mask on it. It's just a hat stand with a clown mask, but it's the first thing you see as you turn around with your new flashlight.
Yeah, that's a dead mask. That's a dead hat stand.
Yeah, well, and Jack's like, "Oh, did these developers know what they were doing? Oh God."
When shit crashes, they're getting hunted down too. I'm just saying.
Well, and like throughout the entire video, he's like, "You guys better like this video. You had better put this video really high in the algorithm, and it better get a lot of plays because I am doing this for you, you jerks." Like, it's like, this is horrifying. Why am I doing this?
Speaking of horrifying and doing things for other people, hello. Welcome to another episode. Episode of Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable Discussion. Before we get started, let me first remind you that we are covered by the BIPCOT No Government License, which allows for the use and reuse of this podcast by anyone and everyone except for governments and the bludgies thereof. You can learn more about that at bipcot.org. That's BIPCOT.org. We're also covered by Brandenburg v. Ohio 1969, which ruled that the government cannot punish inflammatory speech unless that speech is, quote, directed to inciting or producing imminent lawless action and is likely to incite or produce such action. Therefore, everything said here on Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable Discussion is entirely hypothetical. This is episode 222. And for the context of this episode, we are self-identifying as a paramilitary camp. Just so you know.
Hence the patch.
Yes. We are self-identifying as a paramilitary camp. Yeah, we're gonna talk about Vermont here in just a little bit. Yeah. I don't have anything else beyond that. Yeah. Jason ran out of steam.
We are a was it an unlicensed paramilitary organization?
No, we're a camp. We're unlicensed paramilitary camp.
Paramilitary camp.
Paramilitary camp. Yes.
How does one define a paramilitary camp versus just a camp with rednecks? I mean, really, I don't know.
a business license? I don't know.
I mean, I'm just gonna point out, like, the differences at best are negligible.
Yeah, all it says is is it they made it a crime to own or operate paramilitary training camps. Let's say it prohibits a person from teaching, training, or demonstrating to anyone else the use, application, or making of a firearm, explosives, or incendiary device capable of causing injury or death that will be used in or in the furtherance of a civil disorder. It also bans a person from assembling with others for such training, instruction, or practice.
Well, good news. All of our explosive devices and firearms are for the purposes of maintaining civil order. So,
or regaining.
Yeah, regaining civil order. So, and therefore, problem solved.
Yeah. So Vermont bans owning, running paramilitary training camps. Republican Governor Phil Scott signed the legislation introduced in response to a firearm training facility built without permits that the neighbors called a menace.
Without permits. Oh no.
Yes.
So, from what I'm understanding here is, as long as your purpose isn't to do these things for civil disobedience.
Yes, as long as it's not for
fine.
Anti-government, as long as it's not for quote anti-government paramilitary activity. So if you're sitting around with your friends listening to Anarchy Among Friends, you're in violation of the law in Vermont.
Well, I mean, strictly speaking, it says that if it will be used in or in furtherance of a civil disorder. Well, so as long as it's in the case, it's to put down civil disorder and in fact restore order, then therefore it's completely legal to do.
Or in self-defense.
Yeah, or for the purposes of self-defense.
I am a believer in ardent self-defense. Right? So yeah, I would call that within the confines of the law. All right.
See? So you just make it like a paramilitary theme park, and therefore it's completely legal. No, it's a fantasy camp. It's fine.
It's a fantasy camp. Allison Anderman, senior counsel and leader of the Giffords Gun and Democracy Project. That's Gabrielle Giffords. Quote, today, Vermont joins 25 other states that prohibit firearm training for anti-government paramilitary activity. Private paramilitary activity is illegal in Vermont and has been associated with the intimidation of people exercising their constitutional rights across the U.S.
I agree that paramilitary activity is associated with that, but not private paramilitary activity.
This is a common sense policy that will help reduce the spread of dangerous, illegal, and anti-government firearms intimidation.
What?
Doesn't this ban people from exercising their constitutional rights?
Yeah, this literally bans people from exercising their constitutional rights. I mean, that's what I was getting at. Is I completely agree that paramilitary activity has been associated with the intimidation of people exercising their constitutional rights. However, that's been paramilitary activity by paramilitarized police, not by private organizations.
Yes.
So,
yeah. The Vermont law does not apply to legitimate law enforcement activity or lawful activity by Norwich University or any other educational institution where military science is taught. It also doesn't apply to self-defense instruction or practice without the intent of causing a civil disorder. Firearms instruction that is intended to teach the safe handling and use of firearms and any lawful sports or activities like hunting, target shooting, and firearms collection.
Again, it's just a fantasy camp.
Yeah, we're just teaching self-defense.
We're teaching it's a fantasy camp where you learn self-defense. You get to engage in the sport of 2-gun and 3-gun.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is.
Yeah, it's just enhanced self-defense.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
What's important is that we don't want to do anything illegal. So,
because we are 100% law-abiding on this podcast.
No. I have a permit. This just says I can do whatever I want.
Yes. In Oregon, which has the 6th highest number of extremist incidents in the country in the last 10 years.
Most of those are by Antifa.
Yes, the legislature is considering a bill that, according to experts, would create the country's most comprehensive law against paramilitary activity. A failed bill this year in the New Mexico legislature that sought to rein in paramilitary patrols created in recent years to halt migrants near the international border with Mexico. A paramilitary patrol in New Mexico appeared at a protest over a salute of a Spanish or a statue of a Spanish conquistador. Wow, they appeared near a statue.
Can I just point out though that second to last sentence of that paragraph appears to not actually complete a thought?
Which one?
A failed bill this year in the New Mexico legislature that sought to rein in paramilitary patrols created in recent years to halt migrants near the international border with Mexico. What?
Yeah. It's ABC News. I mean, they're not.
That was the beginning of a thought or possibly the end of a thought. I don't know which, but that was not a whole thought.
Yes.
I mean, it's journalism. So,
the owner of a 30-acre firearms training center. So now that they just called this a firearms training center. The owner of a 30-acre firearms training center in southern Vermont has until summer to remove all unpermitted structures on the site in Paulet. Neighbors have complained about the gunfire and what they say are threats and intimidation by the owner, Daniel Benet, and his supporters. The Vermont Environmental Court said that Benet was in contempt of court for deliberately flouting a series of court orders issued since the legal case began in 2019, and now he faces jail fines that could exceed $100,000 if he fails to comply by June 23rd. So yeah, that's why. Because this guy bought 30 acres and built his own what they call it a firearms training center, not a paramilitary camp. This is a firearms training center. Because he wasn't going along with their program, he had permits, but then they changed zoning and they wanted him to get new permits. Like the whole thing's documented. It's crazy. And he essentially said no, right? Constitution, Second Amendment, blah, 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 blah. It's my land, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so now they passed a bill at the state level to ban paramilitary training camps because of his firearms training facility.
A firearms training facility which would not have been found to be illegal under this law. Because its issue was not that it was a paramilitary training facility. Its issue was just that he didn't get the right permits and there were noise complaints.
It's not he refused to get the right permits is what it was.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. They changed the game.
Yeah, but I'm saying that that's the issue. It wasn't even the intent of what he was doing that they're it even would not have been affected by this. They're just using that as an excuse for you see how dangerous this. Oh yeah, protecting us from the dangers of a gun range in the middle of the woods.
Yes. By banning paramilitary activity.
Because here's the thing, right? They're going to say, oh, it's because it's just to prevent anti-government paramilitary activity. But what's going to happen is they're going to start applying that to any tactical training facility that does not cater exclusively to police, right? So they're going to start applying that to, oh, you have a shoot house for airsoft? Well, that's a paramilitary training facility that gets shut down. oh, you do 2-gun matches, and so you have barriers and all these other. Oh, that's a paramilitary training facility. We're going to have to shut you down, and that way they can start taking care of every single place that anybody could possibly learn how to actually defend themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Slowly but surely.
Yes, and the group dynamic.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, if you're shooting at human-shaped targets, you can call it self-defense training.
Technically,
as long as they don't look like government officials.
Well, I mean, the silhouettes are all kind of the same, so who's to say?
Yeah. Yeah. Just don't paint the top blue. You'll be fine.
Or that one that was the train how you fight, and it was the silhouette said ATF and then had the steel plate around the steel plate on.
You get some of those Grand Thumb Ron Jeremy targets.
Oh. Yeah, there are places in the US that you can get in extreme amounts of trouble for shooting at human-shaped targets at all.
There's a paramilitary training camp or paramilitary training group here. It's a self-defense company here in the Bay Area, and they won't use human targets. They only use round targets, because they had a state legislator come through one time, and he did not like the human targets and tried to get them shut down.
It's self-defense.
They're not even human targets. They're not even really. Yeah, they're not even human targets. They're like IPSC targets.
Yeah.
But
who do you think? Well, and I mean, who do you think that I'm learning to defend myself from? Like, again, they constantly latch on to this. The Second Amendment is about hunting. No, it was never ever about hunting. It's always been about shooting people who are trying to threaten your freedom. Like the kind of person who would try to shut you down because you're using human-shaped targets for self-defense training.
Because you tried to legally ban their business, their way of making money, because of unpermitted structures. Yeah.
It's and I mean, this is kind of just another step in that trend that we've been seeing over and over again for the past few years. And it just keeps building and building and building. And the more people keep not really pushing back
with this,
the bolder they get about it.
You and I have talked about your idea before, Iron Harvest.
Mm-hmm.
This would fall into that group, right?
Yeah. It would wind up being called a paramilitary training facility and then be banned because I seek to train others in things like small unit tactics and how to work together in a lethal live fire situation.
Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. We self-identify as a paramilitary camp today.
Apparently, like it's ridiculous, but I mean, it's transparently what it has nothing to do with safety. It has, even though they're touting as, it's to cut down and no, it's not. It's to make sure that people who would otherwise learn how to defend themselves from you gun grabbing pile of shit, can't learn how to do that effectively in the open, that they have to be quieter about it.
It wasn't Daniel Benet and his guys that were out there in 2020 burning down cities.
Yeah.
You could say that they were paramilitary troops or paramilitary trained people out there, but it wasn't Daniel Benet and his supporters.
Well, and I mean, here's the thing too: is like, where do they draw the line on that? Like, is if I'm running a private military contractor and I have a training facility, are you going to shut me down because, well, it could be for civil disobedience? Well, what if it's not for civil disobedience in the United States? What if I'm training people for civil disobedience in a different country?
I think that's okay because legitimate law enforcement activity or lawful activity by Norwich University or any other educational institution where military science is taught.
Yeah, but I mean, if I'm training my guys to go do it themselves, it's not really an educational institution. So
I guess it also doesn't apply to self-defense instruction or practice without the intent of causing a civil disorder.
Well, and like I said, I mean, we don't intend to cause any civil disorder. We intend to restore it.
Yeah, so you'd be fine. Iron Harvest would be fine. You'd still be a paramilitary camp, but it would be a lawful activity.
I never set up in the Northeast anyway. Holy crap!
Not in Vermont, no.
Not Vermont. I went 7 in Vermont, New York, Connecticut, Pennsylvania.
Even New Hampshire's a stretch. Even New Hampshire's a stretch at this point.
Yeah, New Hampshire isn't much better than Vermont. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. Too many libertarians in New Hampshire.
Well, yeah. I mean, should develop a spray or something.
There's a new controversy there. I'll talk to you afterwards about that. It's not wrong, but yeah. Would not set up in the Northeast either. No.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm never gonna it's because the Northeast is as bad as the West Coast.
Yes, it's blue. Yes. It's very blue.
It's,
even Vermont, which this bill was signed by the Republican governor, it's a very blue state.
A Vermont Republican would not be a Republican in Arkansas. Let's put it that way.
No. Bernie Sanders is from Vermont. It should be enough said.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of paramilitary, how about a Greater Idaho update? Greater Idaho movement claims 12th Oregon county to vote in favor of moving the state line.
Woo!
After Tuesday night's special election in Oregon, the long-shot Greater Idaho movement has claimed victory in 12 eastern Oregon counties, despite results not being finalized as of Wednesday morning. Blah, blah. The movement proposal calls for 14 full counties in eastern Oregon to move to Idaho, as well as the eastern side of a number of other counties in central Oregon. So this is Wallow, Wallowwa. Wallowa?
Loa? I think it's Willowa, maybe. I don't know. The language, the native language in Oregon and Washington is so different than the ones that I'm used to here that I generally get the stuff like they have like Snoqualmie and stuff. I have no idea.
Yeah. We'll call it Wallowa. Wallowa County, located in the northeast corner of the state and bordering both Idaho and Washington state, voted on the ballot question requiring county commissioners to discuss the possibility of moving the Idaho-Oregon state line westward. So it passed. The county has a population of 7,659 people, which is about 2% of the people of Eastern Oregon. So, yeah, so that's 12 now. So, woohoo! And then Crook County is the next one voting. Coming up. So
Umatilla, Gilliam, Wasco, and Deschutes are the ones that haven't voted yet.
Yes.
And then Crook, which hasn't voted yet, but it's about to.
Yes. So the Greater Idaho movement is gaining popularity and collecting signatures. So, all right, where do you want to go after that? Dave! What's up, Dave?
After we get good news, where do I want to go from there? It's a good question. Actually, since we're talking about Greater Idaho, I feel like either the top one on that list or the second one on that list kind of applies, considering the whole reason the Greater Idaho movement really started was because of the pandemic thing.
Ooh, okay, yeah, we go there. Dave would also be involved in that paramilitary activity.
Yep.
Yeah.
Don't go to Vermont.
Don't go to Vermont, Dave. Yes. Supreme Court Justice Gorsuch.
Gorsuch.
Irma Gersh Oh my gosh. Okay.
Neil Gorsuch. Yeah.
Gorsuch. Okay. I think for people in the area who would be interested in that hypothetical training. Yeah. More than a few. But Supreme Court Justice Gorsuch scolds Americans over handling of pandemic emergencies. Supreme Court Justice Neil M. Gorsuch issued a searing denunciation of the way the country handled the coronavirus pandemic in a statement Thursday, warning that Americans were all too eager to give up their freedoms on the say-so of a few chief executives. He chided legislators and judges for vacating the field and leaving the president and governors unobstructed as they issued decrees. Those decrees cut deep into Americans' most fundamental freedoms, canceling schools, shuttering shops, closing churches, even as casinos and other, quote, favored businesses were allowed to roll on. Justice Gorsuch also said, it all took place while dissenting voices were silenced by social media companies responding to government pressure. Yeah. Like we literally said that from the beginning.
Yeah, there are a whole bunch of us that from the beginning were like, look at this, look at these freaking sheep. Bah, bah. Save us, government. And we're willing to just give up absolutely everything, absolutely every freedom they had. Yes. The freedom to assemble, the right to free speech, the right to keep and bear arms, just one after another, right down the list. And we're just willing to sacrifice all of them because, they said it. The government said that there's this scary thing, though, and they need to take away our freedoms to make us safe. Let's just give all those up then, because I value safety far more than I value freedom.
Remember when they put the yellow tape up over parts of the grocery store or parts of like the Walmart that you weren't allowed to go and buy?
Yeah.
Good times.
The arrows that you had to follow. Yeah. And the little dots with where you were supposed to stand in line.
Stand 6 feet. Yeah.
Yeah. And then people would be standing, like they'd put them out, in the weather instead of underneath awnings. And there are those videos and those photos of people standing in the rain to stand on the dot instead of going 3 feet to the left to get underneath cover. But
you could go protest.
Yeah, you could go protest within designated areas at designated times. And that's
2020. I mean, you could go burn down a building. You could go you could Target. That was fine. For the most part.
Yeah.
But you couldn't hug your grandma. You couldn't go to her. You couldn't see your dying grandpa in the hospital. Right.
People had a whole bunch of people died of otherwise treatable cancers because they didn't go get screenings because their screenings got delayed because of it. Even though they didn't have COVID, their doctor didn't have COVID. There was no reason for them to not go get the screening.
No, one of
allowing screenings.
One of the podcasts I listen to regularly, Prepping 2.0. Glenn Tate. Glenn and Shelby lived in Western Washington. And Governor Easley there in Washington shut down what they call elective procedures. So Glenn wasn't able to get a prostate exam. And then, oh my God, he developed prostate cancer and almost fucking died.
Yep.
Insane.
And that was all part of the plan because it's going to further reduce the population.
Yep. That's it. They closed the gyms, but they allowed alcohol delivered to your house. Yep. But it's about health, right? It's totally about health.
Well, and it's one of those things like I've dealt with too with people where I've said, even if let's say hypothetically that authoritarian communism does make you richer, like somehow it does improve the standard of living. Let's say that it does make everybody statistically happier. Let's say that those things were all true. That it vastly improved human longevity and healthcare and everything else. Let's say that's all true. I still don't care because I still value freedom more than I will ever value my health, my safety, or even my happiness. Flat out.
Yes.
I do not care one way or another. I will still not support authoritarianism because I would rather be in constant danger and unhealthy, but at least free.
Yes. Yes. What's dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery.
Mm-hmm.
So Justice Gorsuch wrote.
Gorsuch.
Gorsuch. Okay, Gorsuch. Justice Gorsuch wrote, quote, "One lesson might be this. Fear and the desire for safety are powerful forces. They can lead to a clamor for action, almost any action, as long as someone does something to address a perceived threat, like banning paramilitary training. Quote, we may even cheer on those who ask us to disregard our normal lawmaking processes and forfeit our personal freedoms," which we were told to shut up and to put on the mask.
Yeah, just shut up and wear your mask. Just stay home.
Yeah.
Why? Why should I? No. And you can't make me.
Yeah. So, it's coincidentally, there's an article out of, again, Western Washington, where a lady has tuberculosis, right? And the doctors got a court order telling her she has to take her medication, right? And she hasn't been taking her medication, and now they issued an arrest warrant or bench warrant for her, and they're going to arrest her for not taking medication for a treatable disease.
If I want to die by a simple, easily preventable disease that humanity has no business still really struggling with at this point in time, then let me do it.
That's just, I would go raw dog girls I picked up at the bar.
Yeah, like, are you kidding? Like, I mean, the thing is, so what's interesting with tuberculosis too is that, like, side note, fun fact of the night, the single deadliest disease in all of human history, if you look back through all of human history, the single deadliest disease for humanity is tuberculosis.
Yes.
That stopped nearly a century ago. Well, two-thirds, 3/4 of a century ago, 3/4 of a century ago.
1940 something.
Yeah, when we developed the inoculation for it, right, in the late 40s, early 50s, whenever. But when we developed that, right, that stopped being the deadliest disease. And so that was a simple way for us to alter the landscape. Well, now at this point in time, new strains of tuberculosis have started to take hold, and it's poised to retake its position as the deadliest disease in the world. Far deadlier than HIV, far deadlier than Ebola or anything else. Deadlier than malaria.
Yeah, malaria's still up there.
Yeah, I mean, malaria is real high, but like tuberculosis still is, like, because you can recover from malaria.
Yeah.
You can recover from the majority of these diseases. You know what you probably won't recover from? TB.
Yeah.
It's a death sentence.
Yeah. The uncurable kind, yeah.
Yeah, it's not necessarily uncurable. It's if you don't get treatment. What I'm saying is, like, even without treatment, you can probably survive Ebola. Most people do.
Yes.
Without treatment, you can survive malaria. Without treatment, you can survive a whole ton of diseases. But tuberculosis, if you get it in your lungs, you're going to die if you don't get treatment. Like that, flat out. Yeah. It's still the deadliest disease in human history.
Which again, it's your choice. It should be your choice.
And it's, and the bottom line is, it's the odds of you, because it's only contagious when you get it. It's actually only contagious for a very short span of time.
Yeah.
And then once it stops being contagious, it's just going to kill you. It's not going to kill anybody else. it's still treatable in you. But if you want to die from something that it would literally take a couple of pills for a few weeks to stop, okay, that's your prerogative. I think you're an idiot, but you have the right to be a suicidally stupid moron.
Yes. Just Gorsuch wrote, quote, "We may even cheer on those who ask us to disregard our normal lawmaking processes and forfeit our personal freedoms." Justice Gorsuch's statement came as part of a complicated case involving whether a state could intervene to defend federal executive action with the new administration no longer wanted it. Justice Gorsuch's statement came as part of a complicated case involving whether a state could intervene to defend a federal executive action when the new administration no longer wanted to. A lower court had ruled against Arizona's attempt to do so, but a high court on Thursday erased that ruling, saying the entire issue is moot now that the pandemic emergency lapsed last week.
Which is crap, because no, it's not. The issue still exists. It still happened, which is what Gorsuch's dissenting opinion was about, was no, the issue still needs to be looked at, and we still need to evaluate that. You don't just go, oh, well, it happened.
So that the end of the pandemic emergency should spur a reflection about what happened. Right? In the case before the justices, he said the high court handled it wrongly from the beginning, allowing litigants to, quote, manipulate the court's docket to force the Title 42 pandemic emergency power to be used as a broader immigration tool. More broadly, he said Americans need to take stock of how laws are made. Quote, "Since March 2020, we may have experienced the greatest intrusion on civil liberties in the peacetime history of this country."
What? Welcome to the party, pal. Thanks for noticing.
That is a Supreme Court justice. A Supreme Court justice says, since March 2020, we may have experienced the greatest intrusions on civil liberties in the peacetime history of this country.
He ain't wrong.
That is a Supreme Court justice making that statement. A sitting Supreme Court justice making that statement.
Mm-hmm.
He said Congress and state legislators should take a look at how much emergency authority they delegated to chief executives. That would be Chevron deference. And he said judges need to be willing to get involved too. Citing Aristotle's writings, he said, quote, "The concentration of power in the hands of so few may be efficient and sometimes popular, but it does not tend toward sound government. However wise one person or his adversaries may be, or however wise one person or his advisors may be, there is no substitute for the wisdom of the whole of the American people that can be tapped in the legislative process."
Well, I don't know how smart even the whole of the American people are, but yeah, I mean, people as a whole generally are able to tell you what they want, whereas one person's just going to decide what they want. I mean, the thing is the point that he kind of is trying to make here is, like, remember that the whole reason that Hitler was able to take the power that he was in Germany was the Enabling Act, right? Where it was a national emergency. The whole reason that, the reason that tons of tyrants throughout history have taken power is because, well, but it's an emergency and I'll give up these powers, right? Like, remember,
look at everything that Wilson did during the Great Depression.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's an emergency.
All those like 6,000 executive orders or something like that? Some ridiculous number like that.
And it's not even just, it wasn't even just Wilson or FDR. I mean, like, look at the kind of power that George W. Bush wielded.
Yes.
Look at the power that, I mean, even Barack Obama used, continue to use the GWAT to continue to wield. Yes. Look at all these things. Look at Heck, I mean, if you want to look at a fictional version, look at Star Wars. Look at the way the Emperor takes power, right? Like he uses this emergency to take power. And don't worry, as soon as the emergency is over, I'll give up all these powers.
Yeah, yeah.
And had never had any intention of the emergency ever ending, because the emergency would then be, but he didn't have his powers. So this is how democracy dies, to thunderous applause. This is how self-governance dies. This is how even the illusion of you having any sort of self-determination goes away, is they come up with an emergency and then they leverage that emergency for why they need all this power.
Yes.
And well, I'll protect you, you need me, and I'll fix it, and I'll figure it out. And we see this again and again and again throughout history. It happened in Italy. It happened in Germany. It happened in, actually, a lot of people forget that it happened in Austria, that Austria was already a democratic socialist country before the Nazis came in. So like, it happened there. It happened, in Czechoslovakia. It happened in Hungary. Like, all across the world, there have been
Japanese internment.
Yeah, Japan. Well, Japan gets real weird.
No, Japanese internment here in the United States.
Oh yeah, that's FDR. Largely like Mao Zedong when he took over as communist leader of China, mostly because Chiang Kai-shek was a complete blithering idiot who had no idea what he was doing. But either way, he was stupid. But the whole reason that like Mao was able to consolidate the amount of power he was because emergency, and you see this again and again and again throughout history, where despots need that emergency to convince everybody, well, I'll protect you, but this big scary thing is a threat. So if you keep wanting to be able to exercise your powers, your own powers of self-governance, you're not going to know what to do, and you're only going to make things worse. So you need to give up all your freedoms and give me all the power. And if you give me all the power, then I can protect you.
Yes. Because that's totally the way to protect everybody, is concentration of power.
Most of the fascist countries in the world, the Italy, Spain, several in Central and South America, the whole reason they wound up becoming fascist was because of economic emergencies. Mm-hmm. Like, that's how the fascists seized power. That's how the democratic socialists, the Nazis in Germany, that is how they seized power, largely was an economic crisis. And so we can fix this for you, but you got to give us all the power.
Yeah, trust us. It'll be fine.
Yeah. I always refer back, like, one of the greatest songs, in my opinion, ever written, Counting Bodies Like Sheep to the Rhythm of a War Drum by Perfect Circle. Okay. If you listen to those lyrics and you pay attention to what's getting said, like, it will stick in your head too, and you will constantly hear that. Don't fret, precious, I'm here. Step away from the window and go back to sleep.
Yeah.
Safe from truth and choice and other poison devils. They don't care about you like I do. Like, that, as soon as you hear those lyrics, you're like, oh, holy crap. Like, you start to understand.
Yeah, I want to read that one quote again. Where'd it go? He says, that's not the right one. It's the other one. Fear and the desire for safety are powerful forces. They can lead to a clamor for action, almost any action, as long as someone does something to address a perceived threat. We may even cheer on those who ask us to disregard our normal lawmaking processes and forfeit our personal freedoms.
Donald Trump needs to take executive action on immigration.
SBC, the stabilizing braces, right? Literally all the EPA Clean Water Act regulations. there's so many things that fall under that. The what we talked about earlier, the ban on the paramilitary training camps, perceived threat.
The every assault weapons ban, quote unquote assault weapons. They're all the one that Clinton did right in 96 that expired in 06, and the entire reason why
94
or 94 and expired in 06, right? That was, one of those things that it once it expired, all of a sudden the gun industry in America exploded and it was fabulous. But like, keep in mind, it has only been 17 years that we haven't had that ban.
Yes.
And
nationally haven't had that.
Yeah, on a federal level, it's only been 17 years. So, like, keep in mind that, in all honesty, like, that was done because of all the automatic weapons that were still on the street, despite Reagan's best attempts to infringe on everybody's Second Amendment rights. That was in response to the North Hollywood. Well, the North Hollywood shootout hadn't happened yet, but that was in response to like things like that, right? Where there's big shootouts with automatic weapons, bank robberies with it.
The old John Brown gun club. Those people, they were patrolling their own neighborhoods, protecting their own neighborhoods from the police. And then they held a protest on the state capitol steps. And right after that is when Reagan called for banning open carry firearms in California.
Yep. Because, oh no, then Black Panthers showed up with guns. I don't like that.
Yep. Protecting their own communities? We can't let that happen.
Yeah. Remember consistently that gun control is the result of racist motives.
Yes. So we may even cheer on those who ask us to disregard our normal lawmaking processes and forfeit our personal freedoms. How many times did we get told just follow the science?
Yeah.
How many times did we get called racist, sexist, bigot, etc., for not wanting to go along with the COVID BS, right? The masks, the social distancing, the closed businesses, all that good stuff.
Lack of social gatherings, how many, like, we all got deplatformed on social media for it. We all got deplatformed.
On Twitter, all our Twitters were killed. Even Dave's.
With no explanation.
Dave's was killed too because he associated with us.
Yeah. With no explanation, no warning, nothing. All of a sudden, our Twitters just no longer existed.
Yep. Poof.
All that happened. Our Facebooks got taken down. Our a lot of Instagrams got taken down.
Yep.
I mean, every possible social media. They were banning people on Reddit over it.
Yep.
And Discord. Like,
and people were cheering. And people were cheering it on.
Yeah.
People were cheering it on, which is stupid. I hate people.
Yeah, but the people, the democracy is just ruled by the mob, but self-governance is one of those things that can only die when the people cheer for it to die.
Talk about democracy. I never voted on any of the COVID BS.
Nope.
I didn't get to vote for a single one of those laws or restrictions or the social distancing or the masks or anything of the sort. I got threatened with arrest for not wearing a mask in the grocery store.
California.
Yeah. But don't worry, Andrew. Don't worry. Everything is fine now because the Biden administration restarts bat virus research grant that funded the Wuhan lab and coronavirus testing.
Oh, you mean the one that escaped, that the U.S. has now confirmed escaped from a lab? Remember getting banned from social media for saying that? Hey, look at that.
Yes. The National Institute of Health has restarted the bat virus research grant it canceled 3 years ago under former President Trump's administration. The original 2014 version of the grant funded research in mixing various bat viruses to study severe acute respiratory syndrome, the coronavirus that caused the outbreak in the early 2000s. The grant also funded the research at the coronavirus research lab in Wuhan, China.
Wait, so that outbreak of avian flu that killed a bunch of people.
SARS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That outbreak was because of the same labs that the coronavirus outbreak was because of. Like the same group. And now we're going to fund them some more to do the same kind of research that caused both of those.
Yes. The Wuhan Institute of Virology will also no longer be directly involved in research. Instead, it will provide more than 300 whole and partial genome sequences of SARS-related bat coronaviruses from its collection for research by the EcoHealth Alliance.
So basically just making itself the tastiest terrorist state target ever.
Yes.
Neat. How could that go wrong?
Several researchers jumped to praise the NIH's decision to restart the grant, arguing they can, quote, finally get back to work. Quote, it's long overdue. Unfortunately, the original cancellation reflects the ongoing partisan politics where first Trump and now many Republicans are attacking science unfairly. That's Nobel Prize winner Richard Roberts of the New England Biolabs.
You know the funny thing? So a friend of mine is involved in similar types of science. And what he told me that I found very interesting is he said generally what's regarded, like most of that community knew that it had to have been a lab leak very early on.
Yes.
Like they're like, it's definitely a lab leak. But when I said something to him about it like being intentional, he's like, oh, no, you're giving those people way too much credit. He's like, I've been to that lab. He was like, there was so little safety that was supposed to be there so that exactly what happened wouldn't happen. There was so little being observed that it was horrific. He's like, I spent 24 hours there and I got the hell out. And I'm like, absolutely not. I want nothing to do with this. He's like, you people are reckless. You're stupid. He talked about how like he saw samples of like deadly viruses being stored immediately next to samples of not deadly viruses. Yeah. In coolers so that you could potentially grab the wrong ones and think like he was just like, this is horrific. What is going on? He's like, oh no, it wasn't an intentional lab leak. It was a wild, impressive state-sponsored incompetence lab leak.
But don't worry, they've reinstituted the grant so that lab can keep studying stuff.
Yeah. Boy, hooray. Let's give all the circus clowns who
I can't wait for COVID 23 or COVID 25.
You know, they're gonna run out of letters of the Greek alphabet pretty soon.
So much fun.
The variants.
Yeah.
There are only so many letters in the Greek alphabet. Like you're gonna run out eventually.
I'm gonna start naming it after celebrities.
Part 2. 80s kids know. 80s kids know. Yes. Part 2. There's like, what flavor is my vape? It's actually it's a combination of mint and a like guava mango that I mix up. It's delicious.
That is just the most hipster fucking thing.
I love it, man. Like I have to have mint in my vape. Like I can't, when I smoke cigarettes, they were always menthol. I can't go to a non-minty thing. For whatever reason I've tried, but you know, you want to shake it up a little bit so it's not a one note song. You know what I mean? So
that is just, oh God, you really do need cat ears.
Dude, I am drinking a blueberry lemon cream fruited sour beer. I really enjoy very high-end cigars and whiskeys. Like, I'm obviously not going to just vape some crappy tobacco flavor. Right?
How do you feel about bourbons?
There's actually my local La Crosse distillery, and I got to try their new bourbon that they just came out with called Buck Dancer. It's actually really, really good. And what's amazing about it is that I got to try it before it was aged and then try a sample of the aged one back to back. So I could actually taste what was the original distillation coming through and what it picked up from the barrel, which is something I've never been able to do before. It was a really cool experience. But it's really good. They do a lot of really high rye stuff. So
cool. How do you feel about government agents robbing people of the opportunity to buy rare bourbons?
Goddamn revenuers.
Yes. All right. This is the hidden article. Don't mix rare bourbon with state power. In December 2022, a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle 23-year-old Family Reserve sold at auction for $52,500.
I knew it would be fucking Pappy. I knew we'd be talking about fucking Pappy.
More than the list price for a base model Tesla. The long-aged bourbon from the Buffalo Trace Distillery is arguably the most sought-after bottle of American whiskey in production today. Pappy Van Winkle commands high prices for the post-retail market, partly because it's so rare. About 84,000 bottles are released each year. By comparison, Jim Beam, a much more affordable and accessible brand, ships about 84 million bottles a year.
Yeah, I mean, if you buy it brand new, like if you would get one of the lottery things for it and you get it brand new, it's only like $140. Like it's really not that much, but because you have to win the lottery to get it. Most people who get it into the lottery and then get one, they don't even try it. They just immediately put it on the secondary market sale and make thousands of dollars on it, which doesn't make any sense because it's not that good. Trust me, I've had it. I've had like 4 different runs. It's not that good.
Yes. The scarcity of Pappy Van Winkle helps explain the furor over the recent revelation that senior officials at the Oregon Liquor and Cannabis Commission had been diverting bottles for personal use.
What a surprise.
The Pappy Van Winkle line of bourbons is divided into age categories ranging from 10 to 23 years, which a distillery distributes across the country. Whiskey obsessives track the shipments, sometimes lining up for hours at a store to have received a delivery. Oregon is a, quote, control state, meaning liquor distribution is managed entirely by a government agency.
Same thing in Georgia, same thing in most counties in North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia.
The OLCC, that is the Oregon Liquor and Cannabis Commission. The OLCC acts as a mandatory middleman for all distilled spirits and contracts with private businesses for retail package sales. Oregon, like some other states that control liquor distribution, holds lotteries for rare bottles. The winners get an opportunity to purchase these products at the manufacturer's suggested retail price, typically a few $100s for Pappy Van Winkle. Top officials at the OLCC circumvented that system. When they wanted Pappy Van Winkle 23 for themselves or friends in state politics, they would redirect the rare bottles to a store located near the OLCC headquarters in Portland. The bottles would be held in reserve for them, hidden from the general public. After work, they'd stop by the store and purchase the bottles at the legally mandated price, which is a fraction of the post-retail price.
Wait, you mean giving these guys control over this led to corruption? What? No.
Yes. Thanks to Oregon's opaque liquor allocation system, OLCC officials didn't have to enter their own lottery, stand in line outside their own state-managed stores, or pay a markup at auction. The system gives OLCC officials extraordinary power over a market in very rare and highly valuable collectibles. At the same December auction mentioned above, for example, 4 other bottles of 23-year-old Pappy Van Winkle, valued at $3,000 to $4,000 each prior to auction, sold for more than $40,000 each. In 2022, according to the OLCC data, the entire state of Oregon received just 999 bottles of Pappy Van Winkle whiskey, including just 33 bottles of the 23-year-old bourbon. State officials used the lottery to distribute 150 of those Pappy bottles, including just 5 of the oldest and rarest issue. The chance of winning the right to purchase a bottle was about 1 in 4,150. The vast majority of the remaining bottles were allocated by the OLCC officials, who bought some for themselves, some as gifts for state lawmakers. They also diverted less rare but hard to find bottle brands or bourbon brands like Elmer T. Lee. So the entire state only received 999 bottles of Pappy and 33 of the 23-year-old. State officials used the lottery to distribute 150 of those Pappy bottles, including just 5. That's 5 of the 33 of the oldest and rarest. The majority of the rest went around the lottery system into the pockets of the OLCC and other government politicians.
So half.
More than half.
More than half.
More than half.
They just took for themselves.
Yes, at the retail price.
Gosh, it's almost like the politicians and the bureaucrats are not made of finer clay than the rest of us and are just as inclined. Now, I mean, the thing is, too, here, right? Like, if this was a regular wholesaler, let's say this is a regular wholesaler. Wholesalers do this all the time, right? Like, all the time, where they get access to some limited editions, whatever, and the executives want them, or one of the, I know several people who work at a local distributor because I really like liquor and I'm super involved in it. But, so I know people who work at distributors here. They will be able to request specific bottles be held back for them if they can get access to it.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason I've been able to try the Jack Daniel's Sinatra, which is the best Jack Daniel's I've ever had, which doesn't say a lot because Jack Daniel's is paint remover. God, it's garbage. It's so bad. It's so bad. At least the Sinatra one ain't terrible. Like I would put it on par with like Jameson Black Barrel. Like that's a $200 bottle of whiskey that I'm comparing to a $40 bottle of whiskey. So I just want to point that out. But that's how bad Jack Daniel's is to start with. But the thing is, though, is like regular distributors will do that all the time. Well, they'll hold back the limited editions to go to specific people who've requested them, who are employees or executives or whatever, which is totally fine because they're a business with competition, right? They have competition in their market. And so they have an incentive to not hold back too many of those because otherwise people won't bother buying them. And they go, well, but I can make such a bigger profit margin if I sell these. This is not that. This is a state-controlled monopoly on liquor distribution that is then using their position as a monopoly to further monopolize the rare, valuable liquors.
Yes. On the taxpayer dime.
Yeah.
To keep taxpayers from the opportunity to participate in a free market exchange.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. They're monopolized. This is a monopoly on top of a monopoly is what's happening here. And it's not a natural one. This is the direct result of the state imposing their will on the free market. And like, that's, as somebody who's a really big fan of rare and exclusive liquors, and who's had a ton of them, admittedly, because I have really nice friends. Like, this is horrifying. Like, that there's all of these people in the state of Oregon who could have possibly otherwise gotten their hands on this for a reasonable price, who were denied that opportunity because of corrupt government officials who decided, surprise, surprise, to use their power to enrich themselves.
I'm shocked, I tell you.
I never would have thought that would have happened. They're generally so trustworthy.
Yeah. I'm so shocked. I want to join a paramilitary camp.
But not in Vermont.
But not in Vermont. Or Oregon. Oregon bans them too.
Yeah.
Oregon trying to ban them. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing. So this is happening in Oregon, and then they're trying to ban the one thing that could stop them and take back the pappy. All right.
Yeah, take back the pappy. Yes. Hashtag take back the pappy.
Hashtag take back the pappy.
Defenders of the state's liquor control system have long argued that it keeps prices low and keeps distribution local rather than leaving it to the supposed predation of large out-of-state corporations. But in practice, it is a system of privilege for the powerful. For nearly a decade, the OLCC, that is the Oregon Liquor and Cannabis Council, was run by Steve Marks, a former top aide to former Governor John Kisbar, who was paid about $222,000 a year. Marks resigned at the request of Oregon's current governor, Tina Kotek, after news of the agency's corruption broke in early 2023. But the scandal was not the product of just one person. It was the inevitable result of granting state officials enormous power over a private market. Oregon is one of 17 control states, another is Virginia, where another bourbon-related scandal unfolded in 2022. An employee of the state-run liquor store illegally funneled information about the state's distribution plans to the leader of an online whiskey enthusiast group. The information was then sold to bourbon aficionados, giving them an edge over other collectors. Shocked?
I mean, that's because that's the thing. Like, as soon as you said that they're claiming it keeps prices low, I'm like, I've lived in Georgia, I've lived in North Carolina. I know for a fact that the state-run liquor stores are always way more expensive than if you go to a privately run one in a different state. The whole reason why Wisconsin's liquor is so obscenely cheap is because we have distributor on distributor on distributor on distributor who are all competing. We have store after store after store who are all competing. So our prices stay
California
so stupid low. So stupid low. I can go out. If I go buy a bottle, like for instance, if I go buy a bottle of my favorite whiskey in the world, right? Teeling small batch. I go buy a bottle of that here. I'm spending $29, $30 for a bottle of that, right? And it's like the greatest $30 whiskey on planet Earth. It's ridiculous. But if I go to a state-run liquor store in North Carolina or Georgia, and I know this for a fact because I bought it both places. If I go there and I go to a state-run, they call them ABC stores. I go to an ABC store there.
Alcohol Beverage Commission.
Yep. And I go to one of those to buy a bottle. I'm spending $49 to $55 for the same bottle.
ABC was the bar I used to go to here in Antioch. It burnt down.
We have one called the library here. It says, "Tell mom I'm at the library."
Nice.
On the awning. Yeah.
State persists with liquor control schemes partly because they generate revenue for the government. Between 2020 and 2022, Oregon reports the OLCC, quote, contributed more than $625 million to Oregon programs, counties, and cities, about half of which went into the state's general fund. But those systems also cost money, and the people who run them are not necessarily careful in how they spend it. For years, the OLCC had planned to build a new liquor warehouse. The cost estimated for the project ballooned from $62 million in 2019 to $145 million in 2022, a 133% increase. In 2021, the OLC purchased 33 acres for the warehouse in Canby. It paid more than $40 million for the land, which had recently sold for just $1 million and was appraised at $22 million just before the OLCC bought it. The purchase terms were so erroneous that Oregon's Public Lands Advisory Committee rejected the deal. It was one of only 2 such rejections in more than a decade. The committee chair told the Jefferson Public Radio the decision was merely advisory, however, and the OLCC proceeded with the purchase anyway. $40 million to purchase 30 acres of land that was appraised at just 22. Yes.
See, and this is the kind of crap right here the government does. Like, remember we did that article probably 2.5 years ago, that guy that built that set of stairs in that park?
Yes.
For like $25 or $50 or something, and the county came in, ripped it all out, and spent like hundreds of thousands of dollars to redo what he had done in an afternoon for like $50 or $100. Like, yeah. This is how the state works right here. Like, oh, it's 22 grand on the fair market. Hey, how about I give you 40? What? That doesn't.
Let's see. Teeling Irish whiskey, 92. You can buy it for $30.99.
Where at?
At Bevmo here in Antioch.
Well, yeah. See, so it's not really any more expensive than it is in Wisconsin.
Nope. So.
But it's way more expensive than that in Georgia and in North Carolina and probably in Oregon and anywhere else that the state controls the distribution of liquor. I guarantee it's more expensive.
Jameson Black for $35.
Yeah, and I think it's like 32 here or something like that.
Yeah. So
it's been a bit, but
I just had to look that up.
Yeah, I mean it's cheap, it's fabulous, absolutely fabulous. At my whiskey club, like, it stood up alongside bottles that cost hundreds of dollars. Yeah, when I was, the night that we tasted it.
When I was still drinking, it was tradition on my birthday. My brothers would bring me a bottle of Jack Daniel's Single Barrel.
Ugh.
Yeah, no.
Still Jack.
It's good. Jack Daniel's Single Barrel is good.
It's still Jack Daniel's.
If I bought it on my own, it would be Buffalo Trace.
That one's it. I mean, I've never really understood the allure of bourbon specifically, personally, but I mean, that's not bad.
I didn't drink it for the flavor.
Well, yeah. I mean, I get that, but
yeah.
I do. So, like, I sit there and I enjoy drinks. So I may drink a lot, but I enjoy what I drink and I don't get hammered. So
yeah, that was the point when I was drinking.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought that was a nice little article that would be interesting to talk about.
I mean, you have government waste, you have corruption, you have the fact that, and I love when they're like, oh, but it gets all this money for these programs. So if you weren't collecting that money that way for those programs, do you think that there would be more or less money in the economy to pay for things like donations from big companies to local programs and things? Like, it's all that's happening is what you're doing is you're taking that money, you're sucking it out of the economy, running it through a bunch of filters of bureaucracy.
It's broken window fallacy.
Yeah. Well, but these jobs wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for all these broken windows. Well, if the windows hadn't been broken, they could have been building an additional building on the side.
Yep. They could have been buying washers and dryers. They could have been going into movies and going out to dinner.
Yeah, like that's
right? What about the jobs in those industries?
Yeah, it's not you're not expanding, you're not improving, you're just treading water at best.
Yeah,
but I mean, when government gets involved with sucking money out of the economy, though, the problem is it isn't just sucking it out here and then injecting it over here. What happens is they're sucking it out and then they're filtering it through how many leeches of bureaucracy before it gets back into the economy again, which means it may have been $100,000 over here. It's 25 grand on the other end.
Yeah.
So you haven't just moved money from the one part of the economy to another. What happens is that you have moved 25 grand from one part of the economy to the other, but you've removed 75 grand entirely from the economy.
You have to pay this person to move it, and the person to move it, and that person to move it, and so
that's what people like.
It's all wealth redistribution.
Yeah, and that's what people don't understand.
Now it's Pappy Van Winkle redistribution.
Yeah, I mean that's what people don't understand about communism, right? Like they don't seem to get that. Like, but if you have a single centralized area where all of the earnings are going, you're paying a bunch of extra people to manage everyone else's earnings, and so the earnings are effectively less. That's
well, the problem is, Andrew, is that. The commune already has an artist. So here, take this shovel. We're digging ditches today.
It always makes me laugh too. It always makes me laugh when like rich like intelligentsia decide that they're pro-communism, because it's like you understand that in every communist takeover in all of history, the first people to be lined up at the edge of ditches has been the rich intelligentsia of the country.
the rich intelligentsia and the anarchists, which is just
those are the people. Yeah, the people who are pro personal freedom, and then the people who supported the revolution and they were perfectly happy to use while they needed them. But the moment that they take over, so that you are counter-revolutionary, comrade, please face wall.
Yes.
Like it's like you do understand that the collective has no need for another bronzing artist, that what will happen is either you know how to run a farm or they're going to dispose of you as unnecessary.
Yes.
Like this is how it works. Like look at who took over the Soviet Union. Was it the intelligentsia that took over the Soviet Union? No. What was Stalin? Stalin grew up in a ultra poor farm, like former serf, like farm. That's where he grew up. Like that's the guy and everybody he surrounded himself with was either military or there were also like poor farmers. Like the people who were the intelligentsia, they got shoved either to the back and stayed there, or they got mad that they got shoved to the back, raised their voice, and then wound up, catching pneumonia from all the holes in their chest in Siberia.
Yes. All right. You want to laugh? It's not okay. This isn't really a laugh. It's a real problem, but it makes me laugh. You ready?
Boy.
Blind charity slams electric car owners who dangle charging cables across the pavement and force pedestrians to dance with death by walking in the road.
Okay, that shouldn't be funny. It is, but it shouldn't be funny.
It shouldn't be funny, but it is. It is.
The funniest part though is that consistently, the most vocal people against electric cars have been the blind community. Like consistently, they've been the ones going, but I can't hear the vehicles coming and get hit because I can't see them. And now they're going, but I can't see these stupid charging cables.
Yes, and it's worse in the UK. Because they don't they don't really have garages.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the cars are parked on the road, on the street. And then, so they don't have charging stations. So they have electric cables, extension cords, essentially, running out the windows across the sidewalk or over the sidewalk, like over the hedges, to charge the cars. And then the blind people are tripping on the cables that are on the ground or running into them that are at head height, that sort of thing.
So I guess the moral of this story at this point is that if you drive an electric car, you hate blind people.
No, they call them electric vehicle car charging cables hanging out the windows and draped over pavements have been slammed by leading charities as, quote, ludicrous and unsafe. The National Federation of the Blind UK, Living Streets and Guide Dogs urge local authorities and electric car companies to improve charging infrastructure, which currently poses a, quote, risk to pedestrians. It comes after images of poorly maintained charging cables hanging out the windows and trailing across pavements across the UK. Where'd it go?
Provoked backlash.
Provoked backlash on social media. In one photo, an orange cable can be seen hanging out the window of a house on Waldsworth, London, trailing down a lamppost wrapped around a 20-mile-per-hour sign. In another, an orange charging cable can be seen running over a permit holders only sign in Wordworth. So there's the pictures. That's what they're complaining about.
Well, and here's the thing too. Part of the reason for this, especially in the UK, and you see it in New England as well, is these neighborhoods predate electricity itself in a lot of cases.
Yes.
Right. Like these buildings do not have the electrical infrastructure for you to set up a charging station back behind the building. And in London suburbs and like York and probably freaking Whitby and everywhere else, there's not enough room for you to have an alley and then a driveway in the back where you could plug your car in. So you have to make do. And you want to talk about privilege, like these people that are proponents of electrical cars acting like, oh, well, you can just, get a charging station in your garage and you can but most people aren't rich enough to build a brand new house with a great big garage that has one of those charging stations and can have one of those charging stations in it. Yes. So
yeah, that's one of the ones that they're talking about. It's the charging cable runs across the sidewalk. It's got a little plastic cover over it, right? I mean, it's relatively safe, kind of. But yeah, that's what they're complaining about is the charging cables.
Well, and that plastic covers so cars don't crush the cable. Yeah. The cable itself is still completely across the sidewalk in that photo for anyone who doesn't see it to trip on.
Yeah, look, there's another one. There's another one where it's just across the sidewalk, nothing on it. And there's another one where it runs like 20 feet down the sidewalk. Or I guess in there and over there it'd be like 6.4 meters or whatever.
Well, I mean, they tend. So that's the really weird thing about the UK is like the UK still uses miles, miles per hour, but they use meters a lot unless it's inconvenient to use meters, and then they use feet. Yes. Like it makes it. It's as random as the traditional English monetary system. It makes absolutely no sense.
Yes. So, but there are over 760,000 electric cars in the UK. So,
it's yeah. What does it say? There is.
There's 760,000 electric cars in the UK. There are 37,055 public electric vehicle charging devices.
So less than 0.5%.
Yes. Less than 0.5%. So
can access public charging stations.
Yes. 760,000 vehicles, 37,055 public electric vehicle charging stations. So people are using extension cords, and it's fucking with the blind people.
Yeah, not just the blind people, apparently also their guide dogs. It also causes major problems for wheelchairs.
Mm-hmm. It's a first world problem in a third world country.
There's a charity called Living Streets in the UK, which encourages people to regularly go on walks. Just, for their own health and things, although I don't know how healthy going for a walk in London is. But they said, cluttered pavements also impact on everyone's desire to walk their short journeys instead of driving them. And it's true, right? If I know I'm going to have to play the fucking jump rope with 40 freaking charging cables,
yes,
to get down the sidewalk, why would I bother with that when I can just drive?
Yes. You can jump in your electric vehicle and drive to the park and walk around the park.
Yeah. Guide dogs, which campaigns for the visually impaired, also said poorly planned charging infrastructure create unnecessary trip hazards for people with vision impairments. No, duh. It creates unnecessary trip hazards for people without vision impairments.
Yes.
How many times have you tripped on an extension cable in like a job site, or when you're working outside and you got a hose or a charging cable running across? How many times have you tripped on it? We all have, right?
Yes.
Imagine now that over the course of the 3-mile walk, you were going to encounter 70 of those.
It says street clutter on pavements remains one of the main challenges facing blind and partially sighted people, with 97% of people with a vision impairment encountering problems with street obstacles. So, yeah. So there's my I feel bad for laughing, but it's a problem that created itself.
Yeah. So again, if you buy an electric vehicle, you hate blind people.
Yes.
That's the takeaway here. That people who drive electric vehicles hate the blind. Which just adds to all of the things that people who drive electric vehicles hate, because they also hate the environment, because it takes about 4 to 8 times more resources.
They probably hate Pappy Van Winkle and paramilitary camps.
They also hate innocent children in Africa, because 90% of the world's lithium is mined by child slaves.
Yeah, that's a NIMBY issue. They don't care about that. It's NIMBY.
Yeah, as long as they don't have to see it.
Yeah, that's not in my backyard in IMBY.
As long as they don't have to see it, they're fine.
They don't see it, they don't care.
But yeah, the reality is that the cobalt, the lithium that make the batteries possible for electric vehicles are almost exclusively mined by child soldiers and slaves.
Slave labor. Yeah.
Slave labor in war-torn countries, and the money all benefits things like Boko Haram. And
that's right. We're gonna get a new source of cobalt when we go into Ukraine. We'll be fine.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, that's the thing, is like it takes 4 to 8 times more resources to build these things.
6.
That's
what they worked out. So it's 6 times as many resources to produce an electric vehicle as it does to create a gas combustion engine vehicle. Additionally, the batteries to produce a 400-mile vehicle, 400-mile electric vehicle, takes about 8,000 pounds of battery.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you're talking about paying for all of this. You're talking about, and the mines are not eco-friendly mines, right? These are giant pit strip mines with tons of toxic runoff. You're talking about batteries that can't be disposed of regularly. You're talking about tons of rare earth metals, in some case radioactive materials that take a lot to get rid of. You're talking about the fact that Now, apparently, also the blind have nothing but problems with all these electric cars. And so you're interfering with their ability to move around along with their guide dogs. So you hate dogs and you hate blind people
You hate
and
dogs.
you hate the environment and you hate African children. Like, if you buy an electric car, you are one of the worst human beings that could exist. I think we can all agree.
All right, so
that
let's
makes you
run
an
down that
awful
list.
human being.
So if you drive an electric vehicle, you hate the blind, you hate guide dogs, you hate kids in Africa, you hate the environment, you hate you're pro slave labor.
Yeah, you're pro-slave labor. You're anti-union because most of the big three that have the unions don't build the electric cars.
Yeah, anti-democracy.
Yeah,
yeah. So there.
So clearly, you just hate everything. You are a horrible, awful individual if you buy an electric car. Is what I'm hearing.
Yep.
Buckshot. Well, the 18650s use lithium. Yeah, I know. I never said I didn't hate the children.
Andrew's Irish. He hates everything.
Are you kidding me?
except of course paramilitary training camps. Andrew's pro paramilitary training camp.
Man, I've seen some of those mines in person, and it's really horrifying. Yes. But the good news is that my 18650s are from Samsung and therefore probably sustainably sourced from, Southeast Asian child labor.
Oh. Yes. Andrew's batteries made it so that a North Korean kid could eat.
See? He got 6 grains of rice instead of 4 because I bought these batteries. I am changing the world 2 grains of rice at a time.
Yep. Hashtag humanitarian.
I'm a goddamn hero, all right? Who's not? People who drive Priuses.
Yeah. Andrew buys those batteries so those kids can fund their paramilitary training camps.
I will not buy an electric, or I will buy a non-electric car so that a child may read. I don't know how that's connected.
Anybody that questions that is a racist bigot. Yeah.
Don't question it, bigot.
Yep, there you go. DHS producing videos teaching citizens how to identify radicalized conservatives.
Of course they are.
They're watching the podcast.
There's just some dude just taking notes and just creating a checklist per episode.
Yes. Pro paramilitary training camps. Check. America First Legal has obtained documents through Freedom of Information Act request from the Department of Homeland Security, which outlines a, quote, choose your own adventure style video series that the DHS intended to release to the public. The videos were meant to depict different scenarios in which citizens might encounter potentially, quote, radicalized individuals. Citizens are then asked to choose what they think should be done about the encounter.
We produce a video series about people encountering potentially radicalized individuals.
Most of the scripted scenarios showcase people with conservative beliefs and values as the radicalized threat. For example, the DHS targeted suburban moms with pro-life beliefs.
Yes, we all know the suburban mom down the street with the machine gun mounted to her fucking Dodge Grand Caravan.
Yeah.
Oh, you got to watch out for them MPVs with recoilless rifles in the back. Like, are you kidding? Actually, that would be sweet. MPVs are available with all-wheel drive, so I'm just saying, like, True. You could, in theory.
Yeah. Out there flashing Aerostar. The video scripts written under the DHS's Office of Terrorism and Violence Prevention was part of an internalized memo circulated on January 29th, 2021, 8 days after Joe Biden entered the White House. The program seems to have been developed in tandem with the Disinformation Governance Board, which was eventually scrapped due to public opposition. It reveals an ongoing and disturbing trend within the federal government to implement authoritarian measures across the country, first using COVID as an excuse, then using the January 6th protest as a rationale.
Can I just point out one of these scenarios, right? Scenario 3A, high school friend's home. Okay. This is scenario 3A from this actual thing that the DHS produced. You're Courtney's high school friend, and as you scroll through your social media feed, you start to notice increasingly strange posts from Courtney. She is beginning to spread conspiracy theories, and the level of anger in her posts is rising more and more. Choice 5A1, monitor Courtney's posts and other conversations. 5A2, check in with her ex-husband to see if he's noticed any changes in behavior. Or choice 5A3, send Courtney a private message to ask how things are in the new city.
Oh.
Yes, check in with her ex-husband. That seems like a reasonable.
Courtney is this close to attending a paramilitary training camp.
I mean, but see, here's the thing, though. Here's the nefarious thing. Think about that. You check in with her ex-husband, like with red flag laws, right? Like, hey, Courtney seems to be buying into these conspiracy theories. She said she didn't necessarily think that COVID lockdowns were necessary. Hey, her angry, jaded ex-husband, what do you think? Yeah, I think she's dangerous. Maybe you should red flag her. Like, this is what this is right here.
Yep.
This is ridiculous.
Hashtag Courtney Limp.
It's I missed the scenario. It says that Courtney is a divorced mother of 2 in her late 30s. Her children have always been her world, but after moving to a new city, she has made a new group of friends and has joined volunteer groups for underprivileged youth. She has become fixated on conspiracy theories regarding government connections to child abuse and trafficking.
Oh, yeah. We can't talk about that one because we don't want to get Hillary Clinton.
But they straight up admit that like she's working with people who are in a high likelihood of being trafficked, and then she starts talking about how much these kids are getting trafficked, and so now it's like, oh, you should monitor your friend's posts and probably turn her into the Gestapo. Sorry, I mean DHS. Like, this is, as much as I laugh, this is terrifying.
Yes. The focus of the DHS efforts were overwhelmingly on conservatives, with the not so subtle implication that conservatives and constitutionalists, or anyone that questions the official government narratives, are domestic terrorists. This was done with the DHS and Democrats mostly ignoring the violent actions of the BLM, Antifa, trans right protesters, etc. The COVID era brought the U.S. and many Western nations to the very edge of Orwellian society, in which partnerships between corporate institutions and government bureaucracy are exploited to express all political and scientific discourse.
Suppress, he said express.
Exactly are exploited to suppress all political and scientific discourse. They created artificial fear and hype over a virus with a 0.23% infection fatality rate. And they painted an unarmed protest at the Capitol building, in which not a single person died because of the protesters, as a, quote, insurrection. Now we find the federal agencies are preparing propaganda to teach the public to act as informants, much like the communist Stasi in Eastern Germany, to weed out and prosecute liberty-minded Americans, or to act as hall monitors for the state, correcting the behavior and speech of their friends and family and neighbors, and creating an atmosphere of self-censorship within the populace.
Remember that in, say, Nazi Germany, the Gestapo, in fact, arrested and monitored very, very few people. And the vast majority of people that got reported to them, they decided not to bother with, because if anything, it was a criminal matter, not an anti-state matter. And it was their neighbors and coworkers and friends turning all these people in to the Stasi, to the KGB, to the Gestapo. This was their friends doing this.
Remember, the state doesn't want to force you to obey. The state wants you to want to obey. Right? Look at 1984 when they got a hold of Winston. Right? Winston learned to love Big Brother.
He had won the victory over himself.
Yes.
2 + 2 equaled whatever the state said it did.
Yes.
They're all 4 lights. Sorry.
Yes.
I had to do that because there's on this page, there's a picture of Patrick Stewart. So
yes.
In an ad.
The most important question to ask is this: what are they afraid of? Is the DHS afraid of legitimate domestic terrorist threats? And are they perhaps misguided in promoting a pre-crime model for prevention? Or is the government about to do something they know will anger the public? Something that might inspire Americans to become militant, such as a broad crackdown on people's freedom? And if the latter wouldn't the best method of prevention be for the government and bureaucrats to avoid enraging the public in the first place and leave our freedoms alone?
The people who are in charge and don't want you to have guns, it's because they're going to do something for which you might want to shoot them.
Yeah, and they would do things like ban paramilitary training camps,
or deplatform everybody and silence them for disagreeing with them, or doing things that get labeled as antisocial. I literally heard that during the pandemic at least 4 separate times. Somebody saying that's antisocial behavior, and I went, comrade. And they looked at me and blinked and were completely confused. I'm like, that's antisocial behavior, comrade.
Yes.
And they didn't get the point. Like, you are literally quoting the KGB. You are quoting the Soviet Union's propaganda right now.
Yep.
Like, do you not? And that's the thing too. It wasn't even just the communists, right? The Nazis did it too, where they had all these posters about anti-socials. The whole part of Action T4, T34, or whatever was specifically to take out anti-socials.
Yep. Going back to the piece on from Justice Gorsuch, right? Quote, since March 2020, we may have experienced the greatest intrusion on civil liberties in the peacetime history of this country. Remember, that is a sitting Supreme Court justice making that statement. At the same time they're doing that, they put out these videos. Well, they were going to put out these videos. Remember this? The FBI. The FBI investigated moms who were angry at school board meetings.
Yep. Yeah, that's the thing is
too much.
Yeah, but they went after people who spoke out on social media. The FBI visited people's homes when they said anti-government things on social media. Has been for years. Yep. I've personally been a victim of that, not directly because they know what happens when they come to my door, but people who know me had the FBI come up and knock on their door and ask about me and what they knew about me. Not because I've done anything, because I speak out against the government and against tyranny.
Yep. Andrew is pro paramilitary training camp. Which makes him a threat.
I exhibit counter-revolutionary leanings, comrade. I'm against the party. Are you questioning?
That's right. AI will find us eventually, and we'll all be wiped out.
I just hope that they dress up the automata that come from me correctly, and they're dressed by Hugo Boss.
There you go.
You're hiding the anti-social speakers underneath your floorboards, are you not?
You are hiding the paramilitary training camp people.
We have reason to believe. Yeah, we have reason to believe that you were recently at a paramilitary training camp. Is this true? This cannot be true. Surely, mein comrade, you would not be doing something so antisocial, yeah? Yeah, and that's, I mean, that is the direction that we're heading. Like, we joke, but like we all know this is the direction that we're going.
Via is your charging cable going across the sidewalk?
Yeah.
Why do you hate blind people?
Well, you know, and the funny thing about that too, like, speaking of the Soviet Union, like in the Soviet Union, if you wanted a car, right? Like, and don't get me wrong, the Soviet Union produced no truly good cars ever. Yes. They produced some interesting ones, very, very interesting ones, but I don't know that anything was necessarily good. And the ones that were halfway decent was because they copied Western designs, but or just de-engineered an Opel in one case. But the funny thing is that if you wanted a car, it all went through your employer. So, like, let's say you worked at a factory, right? That factory was allotted a certain number of cars by the government to make the decision of who in that factory deserved a car. And if you wanted a car, you had to write a letter to your superiors requesting a car and saying why you wanted it. They would then do a full background check that would look into, you know, who your friends were, the things that you'd said, your work production history, and all this other stuff, your time at your position, all these other things, right? And then from that, then government officials who determined who got the cars would decide whether or not you got a car.
That sounds very environmentally friendly.
Yeah. So imagine being at a factory job, like you've been working at this factory job for like 8 years, and then Greg from accounting, who's been here for 3 or 4 weeks, suddenly gets a car before you, and you're like, "What the hell?" And they're like, "Well, he stays late."
Yes.
Like that is essentially how that worked. But if you knew the right government officials or the right bureaucrats and you could grease some palms, then you could get a car. There were some limited edition cars. Like there was one that was based on a 50s Chevy that the government officials, heads of the military, and Yuri Gagarin got to drive, but were not even for sale to anyone else. Super classless society. Hooray. Right. Yep. Like, but
those people should have went to paramilitary training camps and learned how to instill democracy.
Well, the problem is that anybody by that point in Soviet Russia who had been at paramilitary training camps had been hunted down during the persecution of the whites by the Reds. I mean,
what? You mean the commune has enough artists already?
Yeah. Well, but that's the thing. Like, so the reason I bring that up is because like we're on our way to that, right? Like we're on our way to where it's no, everyone has to have electric cars, but I can't afford an electric car. Well, too bad. Then you don't get a car. And then it's, well, you know what we're going to do is because it's so hard to afford electric cars. See, we're going to allot certain numbers of electric cars by county. And if you'd like one, now you just have to explain why you need a car. And if your government officials decide that you deserve one, now we'll give you one. Oh, by the way, it's connected to the government network, which means if you ever say anything wrong, we can disable it.
Yeah, your social credit score will go down.
Yeah, we can disable it, or we can reduce your maximum speed, or we can reduce your range and confine you. You know, we can geofence the car to a specific
place. Lock your doors, and force the vehicle to drive to a designated area where we will talk to you about your paramilitary training camp activities.
Yeah. And lock down your phone, lock down all of your means of communication so that you can only talk to those who are approved for you to talk to. Like, this is the direction that we're going very, very quickly. And don't think that, like, you know, just because I'm ragging on the commies, I'm not going to rag on the Nazis. The Nazis were just as bad. If you wanted a VW, right? The car for the people.
The people's car.
You could earn these little tickets towards getting a VW if you worked in the factory. However, based on calculations from the paperwork, because obviously the Nazis were extensive record keepers. We have enormous piles and piles and piles and piles of records. Based on what we can calculate from that, it would take the average worker nearly 12 years to earn a Volkswagen Beetle at that rate.
Yep. I don't know how we got off on that subject, but
I'm just talking about like the idea that it's what's happening is this change to where the government will decide what you deserve. Yes. Based on your social credit score, based on, well, how hard are you working for us? How much are you saying good things to your neighbors? How affirming to people's gender identity are you?
Whether you let your kids attend that special event at the library.
Yeah, like, well, we were going to award you with an extra 20 miles range on your car for this month, but you failed to attend the optional or voluntary, because that's what they'll call it, the voluntary Pride Week event. So I'm afraid that you're in fact being docked 40 miles to the range to your car. Like, these are the things that are going to start happening.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, you didn't stand fast enough for the Pledge of Allegiance, which means that we're going to have to go ahead and your car isn't going to work for the next week.
We both are, Jack.
Yeah.
Jack says I'm fucked. I'm so fucked. Yes, yeah. We're fucked. We're all fucked.
It's, you didn't, hey, it was the 4th of July and you only set off 2 sparklers.
What?
Much lower than the mandatory 5 during the playing of America the Beautiful from the national PA system.
I think those are banned in my county, actually. No, seriously, like all fireworks are banned in my county. Like even the
including sparklers?
Like all the safe and sane fireworks. Like even those are banned in my county.
Lame. You might as well just set off the big shit then.
Yeah, they do. Well, they do.
Oh yeah, there's
window rattling. They do.
We my favorite is a drone video over top of the city of Chicago where all fireworks are banned in the city limits.
Los Angeles.
On the 4th of July.
Los Angeles.
Was that LA? Okay, yeah, I thought Chicago. That was LA. Yeah. And it's just this massive field of all these mortars going off and stuff. It's like, freedom.
So, before we get out of here, we gotta say rest in peace to a meme legend. David Brandt. He's a farmer from Fairfield County, Ohio. He is the "it's not much, but it's honest work" meme. Right? That is David Brandt. He died as a result of an automobile accident.
Oh, rest in peace, meme king.
Yeah. So we lost honest work guy.
The thing is what's his face? The sad trying to look happy guy. Mm-hmm. He's getting up there in age too, because he was a soldier like World War II. Like he's pretty old. We're probably gonna lose him before too long too. Like that's
but
sad.
David Brandt was a Vietnam veteran also. So so we lost him.
That's sad. It ain't much, but it's honest work.
Yeah. All right, let's throw out some links. Let's get out of here.
Oh, buy Derica's book. It's called Think for Yourself, Thinking Workbook for Beginners. It's available for sale on Amazon. It's like $10. Use it before you leave a review, for the love of God, or I will make fun of you.
We will definitely make fun of you.
Oh, so make fun of you. Let's see. Also, check out Dave at Poppins Patches. He makes a ton of really, really cool patches that we all love, and lots of nostalgic stuff. And I think he's got a bluey one now. I think I saw.
He just dropped the flamingo with the minigun one.
Yeah, flamingo. He's got all sorts of stuff. He's got Star Wars stuff, Dexter's Lab, Ed and Eddie, all kinds of cool stuff. Go check him out. It's Poppins Patches. He's on Instagram. I think he's on Twitter, although I don't see him on Twitter very often. He's got a website. Check him out. We are also an affiliate of Reaper Brand Apparel. They make really cool stuff. They have cool hats, cool shirts, cool hoodies, and they have a really, really awesome message. Take their Broken Not Defeated challenge. Check out their Broken Not Defeated merch. super awesome. Definitely a good follow on Instagram for their videos. They're if you're watching the video, Jason's got the flamingo with a minigun. We're also an affiliate of Lions Not Sheep. Check them out. I personally really enjoy their Free Man t-shirt. They have a bunch of other cool ones. They also have a very cool message. Eventually, one of the patches that they sent me, I may actually give away. I haven't really decided yet what I want to do. But make sure you check that out. Also, if you want to care for your beard like I do, like a Viking, and keep it supple and keep it manageable and all sorts of other cool stuff, check out thebeardstruggle.com. That is thebeardstruggle.com. They have cool stuff for your beard. They have cool stuff for the ladies, not their beards. They're not dwarves. They have beard straighteners, all sorts of cool stuff. They also have colognes now, all sorts of cool scents. And if you use Inked Anarchist 15, you get 15% off of your entire order all the time. That's Inked Anarchist 15 there. If you do go to Reaper Brand Apparel, if you want to use code Inked Anarchist, you get 10% off. However, if you use the link in our link tree, you get 15% off. So I highly recommend using the link in the link tree. And as always, all this stuff is also linked in Linktree. Coffee brand coffee. You drink coffee. I think just about everyone does. I don't know how people raw dog reality without large amounts of caffeine. It's beyond me. Check out Quartering Coffee. Again, link is in our link tree.
Caffeine, yes. Coffee, no.
No. Well, coffee. I will consume caffeine in almost any possible form I can get my hands on it in. So I am perfectly happy to drink coffee, tea, Monster, Bangs. I don't care.
Coffee and fruity nicotine, huh?
Yep. Whatever I can get. I need stimulants. I crave stimulants. I have ADHD. My brain doesn't work without large amounts of stimulants. I'm a squirrel without it. So, do we have anybody else? Yeah, I know, right?
No. RK
I'm
Spookware?
trying to remember. I always feel
RK Spookware.
Yeah, RK Spookware. RK Spookware. We're also an affiliate of RK Spookware.
Where you can get the stuff you need for your paramilitary training camp.
Yes, exactly. If you know what they do, you know why you need them.
And the paramilitary training camps.
Yeah, check him out. He's always adding new stuff. He's always got tons of good stuff. And if anything's sold out, just wait a little bit. He'll start producing. He produces all this stuff in-house too. So things are not getting contracted out, and he doesn't share customer lists or anything else. So check him out. Highly recommended. Super cool. Use the link in the link tree so you support me when you do it.
Yep.
I don't know. One of these days I'll actually write down a list. I'll have like a list on the side of my monitor to go through everybody that sponsors us, because we have quite a few now at this point. If you're interested in sponsoring us, please hit me up on any of the social medias. I'm more than happy to hawk your shit in exchange for money. So
yes, or free product, whichever.
Yeah, or free product. If your product's cool, like I'll totally do it for that too. I keep wearing anti-state shirts, but anti-state refuses to even acknowledge my existence. So, but if anyone wants to convince them, then maybe they should send me a couple of free things. That would be cool.
On that note, Grifter Among Friends podcast roundtable discussion.
To be a grifter, I need to actually make something, and I really don't.
That's true. Oh, we're up to like $4.20 something on Fountain worth of Bitcoin.
Woohoo! $4 worth of Bitcoin. Yeah.
Woo! We're in the money. But yeah. Anything else real quick?
Oh, not really.
Okay. In that case,
I'm just tired.
Keep your rifle by your side. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.